Welcome to episode 4 of the Sports Geek podcast. On today's episode, we'll chat with George Rose from the Manly Seagulls about athletes and social media, and Chris Eppenfeld from the Charlotte Bobcats about sports CRM.
Welcome to the Sports Geek podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, known for using more hashtags than Kobe Bryant, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You can find me on Twitter at Sean Callanan and at Sports Geek on Twitter. And yes, I do on occasion use too many hashtags or excessively long hashtags. Thanks again for all the feedback. And if you're listening for the very first time to the Sports Geek podcast, welcome and thank you for listening. If you want to look back at previous episodes, you can find them all at sportsgeekhq.com/SGP. Let's get into today's show. My first guest is from the Manly Seagulls in the NRL. He is prop George Rose, or Gorgeous G Rose on Twitter. And what we talk about is an athlete's point of view of how he uses social media and how it can deepen the connection with fans and how he converses with fans on social media. So here it is, George Rose from the Manly Seagulls. First of all, welcome to George Rose, or as everyone would know him on Twitter, Gorgeous G Rose. How you doing, George?
I'm good. It's one of my first ever Skype interviews, so I'm liking this. It's pretty cool. Yes,
so this will be you're talking to people through their iPods right now, so we're messing with technology. So first of all, for people who don't know, we've got some listeners over in the States and the UK and around Australia. George plays for the Manly Seagulls in the NRL. And was, for mine, one of the first athletes that I started working with at Sports Geek when we were doing some work with the Manly Seagulls. So, George, first of all, tell us where you are on all these platforms. So you're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Have I covered them all?
Well, they're the main ones that I use at the moment. I have signed up to a few other things, but I generally use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, on a daily basis.
And so, how is you've now you would say you're a veteran at that. You've been on it for a couple of years now, and you use it on a daily basis. How do you use it? What's your main goal when you're getting on social? What's your main goal of why do you tweet? Why do you Facebook?
Sometimes it's just to I guess a little bit of shameless self-promotion. Yep. To let people know what I'm doing, or if I'm doing something good, or something in the media or anything like that, just to let people know what I'm doing. Also, just general chit chat. I found that the more I got involved, the more I enjoyed a little bit of chit chat. I met a few people on there. Manly fans, rugby league fans, and people with interesting things to say. So it's it sort of surprised me. You sort of learn a little bit about the Manly supporters and just general supporters, as well as they get to learn about myself. So I enjoy it.
So, I remember when we first met and we did our first sort of session on all things social. Initially, you were engaged with fans on Facebook, but you migrated to a fan page. That was a bit of a laborious process of unfriending people you didn't know, which is great because now you can have that interaction without, the main issue is the security of your friends and family and fellow teammates. Now they're using the fan page, and I see you sharing your Instagram pics and talking to people after the game. What do you think? What are the differences between from using Twitter and then using Facebook, for instance? What's a kind of different interaction you get as an athlete?
Well, the big move on Facebook was very handy, because a lot of my personal life was, mixing with my professional life. So, it was good to get that separated. But on Facebook, I generally like to. It's sort of more of a long-winded status, I guess, that I use on there. I'll use that to be able to a post game little post mortem after the games, and and to give everyone a chance to sort of comment on our game and how we went. Whereas I think Twitter I use as more of a general interaction sort of social media. I reply to a lot more people on Twitter. Yeah, I think on Facebook, since they've brought the inbox on the fan pages, I've been involved with that too. It sort of gives a place for people to make requests to me as well. People are often looking for community visits and help with charity situations, with raffles or benefit nights and things like that. And it gives people access to that to be able to ask them questions because not everybody uses Twitter, not everybody uses Facebook. So on both different things, I have different interactions, and it's good to be able to get access to so many people.
So we always keep hearing in the media, especially some of the bad stories of social media and athletes mucking up or making the wrong thing or tweeting the wrong thing. I've actually been using one of the lessons you gave me the first time we met of your rule of not tweeting, and I'm not tweeting after 10 p.m. Which I think is a great rule. I'm assuming you're still having that self-discipline to not do that. What other tips can you give? Do you give athletes, or do you give your mates to say, well, if you're going to go on social, here's some of the things that have worked for me. Is it the 10 p.m. rule? Is there other things that you do as well?
Yeah, generally that is, one of my best rules is doing that. It is hard to do sometimes, especially when you're not thinking straight. So the more you can stay off it after that hour is the best. But whenever some of the boys are looking at getting on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, I just tip them off that you are going to cop a little bit of flack.
Yep.
It's probably 2 out of every 100 people are going to say something negative to you, but there's 98 people saying something positive. So the best thing that you can do is just block and ignore, because you really are. You're going to cop it. There's people out there that are going to say things that they're just looking for a reaction from you. They might not mean it. They just want a reaction from you, and they're going to say it. So just ignore it. Prepare yourself for the negative stuff, but embrace all of the positive stuff too, because there is a lot of really positive supporters out there, and it's great to get to hear from them, and it really does boost the ego a little bit. It keeps you motivated.
Oh, exactly. You get a little bit of a head wobble after a good game, and there's a bit, you're trending. You were trending worldwide when Manly won the premiership after a few incidents. So that's it's always good to say you've been trending worldwide, and that is great advice from a troll's point of view. They are just doing it to get a rise out of you. I mean, there are different people that have different strategies. I don't know if you follow Ricky Gervais. He constantly is retweeting and replying and sort of taking the mickey out of a lot of the fans or a lot of the trolls that are trying to get to him. That is a tactic you can take, but not all of us have the quick wit and the sharp tongue that Ricky Gervais has.
Yeah, well, I do agree. I reckon that is a good way, because I do see a few people doing it, but then I also think, you're giving them a little bit of fame by doing it.
Yep.
They're getting out to Ricky's, millions of followers, whereas the people who are giving him a rap and saying the good things, they're not getting any love. So, I'd rather show love to the good guys.
Yeah, and the other thing that you do see if you look at Ricky Gervais's stream is every now and again he has to say, "Please, guys, you don't have to attack the guys that I'm having a go at," and that's the other danger that I see for athletes. If you reply to some fan and call him a peanut, and you've got this legion of fans that are really positive for you, but you don't want to start inciting that crowd to attack this other person, because you don't know if that Twitter account is a 35-year-old man that's just got a lot of anger in him, or a 15-year-old kid that's very confused. So it's a very dangerous position for athletes to be in. If you're gonna out a hater, as we call them online, you've got to be very careful, because you don't know who that person is.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big stories in Australia at the moment is this whole racism debate, and unfortunately, it's reared its very ugly head again with the Adam Goodes incident and the unfortunate comments from Eddie Maguire again. And we saw Harry O'Brien and make quite a big statement using Twitter. And as well, Adam Goodes has been really amazing in using Twitter to get the message out. I mean, you're an Indigenous Australian, George. What's your take in seeing what's happening on Twitter? Because you can see so many people having their say. Do you have something to say on the whole topic and what you see as far as your interaction with your fans?
Well, I thought initially, what Adam Goodes did and said was outstanding. He kept it very positive. He was happy to move on, and some of the things that he said were really inspiring, and I thought that was outstanding from him. But then, to have it brought up again, somewhat stupidly, by Eddie Maguire is it was a bit silly. But again, I think Adam Goodes handled it great again, considering the limelight that he was facing from this stuff, and again, you're going to get a lot of positive and negative responses, but I thought he was great. And I also caught the Harry O response. I hadn't followed Harry O before that, but to see him stand up and take a real stand on his thoughts and his beliefs on the subject was great. I think it's good that people were there publicly showing support, and hopefully everything is sorted out from that. But again, congratulations to Adam Goodes on how he handled it.
Yeah, and I guess that's now the opportunity that athletes have, that you didn't have, even 5 years ago, is that you can have your say on a topic, and it can be as a powerful topic as racism that can be unfiltered, that fans can directly get to. And I guess that's the power that you now have, with as athletes, have influence in the media anyway, but now you've got this direct line that you can talk directly to your fans, and that's the opportunity that social effectively gives you.
Yeah, and I think it's great. You get the word straight from the horse's mouth, and there's no middleman in the media screwing things up.
Yeah, exactly. So getting back onto topics around social and things like that, just give the listeners on the Sports Geek podcast an idea of, are there any particular apps that you use to manage everything? So what are what type of phone do you use? What kind of apps are you using, on a daily basis?
Okay, I'm on the iPhone 5. I use pretty much just the standard apps on there. I use the Instagram, Twitter and Facebook apps on there, but I have the Facebook Pages app as well to manage my fan page. I've also got a couple of other pages that I've got running that I just handle them all through there. I think initially that app was just a little bit behind on everything, but I think recent updates have really brought it up to speed, and it's a lot more easy to use, because I found a lot of the time I'd have to go online, jump on the laptop and use it to be able to interact properly with people on my Facebook page. But now that app's been updated, it's I can use it for almost anything.
Cool. And so, from your experience, so if we look at Twitter, what athletes are you following that you sort of look up to both from a sporting point of view, but also how they're using social media, and you say, oh yeah, that's something that I should be doing, or I could be doing stuff like that with my fans. So who are you following? Who are you looking up to in a social and a digital space?
I follow a lot of NBA and NFL players. I follow a lot of local athletes as well, rugby league, NBL, rugby union, a few AFL guys, and you do pick up little things on how they communicate and things that they do. Also the type of things that they're sharing, because sometimes you wonder, how far you want to take it with what you share with people on Twitter, and when you see other people doing it and getting a good reaction from it, you think, well, that's okay. I'll start doing that, and just some of the general conversations I see, like Quade Cooper from the Reds. He it's maybe once or every few days you'll see him interact with fans. He'll toss out a question and then just have a good interaction with fans for maybe an hour or more, and I think that's a really good thing. It keeps everyone positive, because I know myself, like sometimes when you just keep throwing tweets at an athlete or star and you're not getting any responses, you sometimes grow a little tired of them, or if they're not interacting with people. There's stars that I've followed and then unfollowed because it seemed like all they were doing with their Twitter was just promoting things that that they had upcoming, whether it's a musician just promoting a record coming out, as opposed to actually interacting with people and just sharing a little bit about their everyday life. So I really like the people who interact, and I got a bit excited. Recently, I had Michael Vick from the Philadelphia Eagles. He tweeted me back, and that was a bit of a big moment for me on my Twitter life.
Well, that's a really good story, because now you know the feeling that your fans feel when you respond to them. I've had the same experience. I've had some of the guys who are running team accounts, heading over to the States and have one of the US teams respond, and they're like, "Oh, that was really awesome." And it's like, well, yeah, you've got to realise that's the experience that you're giving the fans when you respond from a team account, or in your case, from your personal account. So it really does show the value. But you did touch there on promoting things and things like that. This coming from a man whose Instagram feed keeps having pictures of you in budgie smugglers. And I will post a picture of George. How has social and your interaction and the fact you're doing a good job, how has it helped you on the side of sponsorship and personal sponsorship, and people saying, "Hey George, can you tweet this out?" It might be small, but has it helped you in that personal sponsorship area?
Well, it has. I guess I was more referring to people that solely used it for that. I'm happy if they interact, plus they do a little bit of thing. And the interesting thing about budgie smugglers is that I was just wearing a pair in a game, and they got a bit of airtime when the shorts came down.
Yep.
And on the back of that, the guys from Budgie Smuggler got in contact with me, and they've kept me in a new pair, on a regular basis. So I think it's pretty lucky in that sense, is to be able to do that. It gives me a chance to promote, some of my sponsors or apparel sponsors, as it may be. And when I do try to do it, I try to do it in a, in a good sort of way, not just a hey, buy this product sort of way. I do try to mix it in there pretty well, but
dare I say it in a cheeky way, George?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, very good. Well, we look forward to you. Your Twitter handle again is?
It's at Gorgeous G Rose.
All right. We'll definitely link to that in the show notes. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck for the rest of the season, mate.
Thanks a lot for my first Skype interview.
You're listening to the Sports Geek Podcast. Tag your tweets, SGP.
Thanks again to George Rose for that interview and a bit of an insight what it's like on the other side of the tweets from a point of view of an athlete using social media. And for the listeners who aren't in Australia and haven't heard about the Adam Goodes racism story that has pretty much dominated the headlines over here in Australia, I will put some links into the show notes. Adam made a really strong response both via Twitter and then via his interview post the incident on Friday night. And then Harry O responded to Eddie Maguire's gaffe, slip of the tongue, mate, say what you will, when he made a mistake on his radio show. Responding to a club president via Twitter, which is a strong stance, just again shows the opportunity that players and athletes have to educate, but also I've sort of seen some of the darker side in helping athletes in some of the responses they do get via social media. So George's response there to ignore and block is a good one, but also he has the opportunity to educate some of these fans. So changing tack, I've gone into the ABC Grandstand archive because we didn't have Grandstand this week, and I want to look back at a discussion I had with the Bobcats, Chris Zeppenfeld. He manages the CRM and helps with ticket sales at the Bobcats, and here's our discussion with him with Francis Leach on ABC Grandstand.
Buying tickets to big events not easy, and I reckon also for the increasing competition in the space for sports organisations to sell tickets is not easy either, because you've got to identify your target market and you've got to make it attractive to them because there's so many options now for sports fans.
Definitely, and at Seat in Boston, they added a stream for CRM. For people who don't know CRM, it's customer relationship management systems, and the way that sports teams over there are using them to better identify sales targets, both from a ticketing point of view for season tickets, but also from a sponsorship point of view. So some really sophisticated stuff happening there in being able to identify, look at a database, identify the fans, but then actually call them. So there's a real big emphasis on ticket sellers and ticket reps and effectively sales reps. So it's not telemarketing. It's about building that relationship, which we've talked about from a social media point of view, but having that personal touch of calling you up and asking what you're looking for, what you want in a season ticket, what are other amenities.
It's fascinating because I was at home, it was my dad's 70th yesterday, happy birthday, Dad, and my brothers and sisters all got together, and we're all footy fans, very for different clubs. Part of my family's St Kilda, part of it's Essendon. So we're actually sitting there going, how much do you pay for your silver membership at the Essendon Football Club, and what do you get for it, and how much are we paying for ours? And someone over there was an AFL member, and they go, well, maybe that's a better option. So there were 3 or 4 different we were literally doing, it was like a little in-house survey group working out, I think I'm being ripped here. Yeah, so it was really interesting, the disparity there, but also the curiosity people had about what value they were getting for their spend, for their entertainment or sports experience.
Well, that's the thing, and now that all the clubs are now looking forward to diversify their offerings. I think Collingwood were the first to start offering that 3-game membership. They looked at their database, and this is what CRM's all about. They looked at their database and they saw a need, and they saw that there were fans who wanted to come to the games but couldn't come to all the games, and so they defined a package, which now we know is a 3-game package, and that did help expand their membership. They're not all full season members, but it gets them in the database. It gets them as a paying customer, and
you can start building a relationship with them.
Start building a relationship with them, and a person who's a 3-game membership might become a full game. Might become an 11-gamer next year, and might become an 18-gamer, and those kind of things. So it's about upscaling that fan.
Who was ahead of the curve in the States who you met there at the Seed Conference who was doing this better than others?
So one of the guys that I did meet was Chris Zeppenfeld from the Charlotte Bobcats. So the Charlotte Bobcats are in the NBA, and they're not doing the best on field, but from a sophistication of their sales team and using CRM, they're doing a really great job to sell out their stadium and sell a whole bunch of tickets.
Well, he's with us this morning here on Grandstand Breakfast here in Australia. G'day, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing well. How is everybody over there?
Not too bad. We're a lot happy now that Leighton Hewitt's won his match there in New York, so that's put a smile on everyone's faces here in Australia this morning. Firstly, how hard is it when your team's not going well, like the Bobcats have had maybe a tough time of it in the last couple of seasons, to actually continue to get people through the gates and give them an experience they'll actually enjoy and pay money for?
I think the biggest thing that we try to do, with our fans is kind of describe them as a little bit more than just kind of what's going on in the court. It's the experience of, taking out your son or your daughter to a game, taking out, your best business client or vendor or prospect and giving them the best experience that they can have for a night out. It's a little bit more than just what you see on the court. And I think that's the really key thing that we try to push here. And eventually, as the team gets better, then, you can start highlighting the different things that are going on the court.
Chris, we discussed yesterday the differences and the developments in the sports CRM space and how the different teams are really attacking the space and treating sports as a business. Who are some of the teams that are doing a really good job in the space of sales and using sports CRM to really maximise what they can bring to the table?
Yeah, and I think there's kind of two groups of teams that are doing this well. I think you've got one group that is, maybe doesn't have to sell as many tickets, but utilizing CRM to kind of get this 360 view of a customer and maximize the potential revenue that they can get. And I think teams like the Dallas Cowboys, the Boston Celtics do this very well. Those guys I think really have thought about, not just ticket sales, but looking at, merchandise and online food and beverage and website traffic and those types of things to really understand what their customers are doing, not just, when they go to the game, but just outside and how they interact with their product outside of the stadium. I think some of the teams that are a little bit more kind of ticket sales focused or sponsorship focused would be the Philadelphia 76ers. I think Mark DiMaruzio did a tremendous job down there. I was really impressed with some of the stuff that they're doing. I'd have to say the New Orleans Hornets and the Toronto Raptors and Maple Leafs. That MLSE group does a really good job. Those are some of the pioneers in the NBA of really coming out with a CRM solution for the team.
What about for your franchise there, Chris? What are some of the things that you've learnt from your fans in the last 2 or 3 years were services that they expected you to deliver to enhance their game day or their experience of the Bobcats?
I think the biggest change that we had over the last 3 years is really understanding that, we have a sales staff of 40 people, who make, a number of outbound calls per day. As you can imagine, at the Bobcats, we don't have a ton of people just ringing in on the phones to, clamoring for Bobcats tickets quite like other teams do. So we're very aggressive in going out to the public and having to make outbound sales. And I think the biggest thing we've done is really make sure that we are maximizing those reps' efforts. I think in the past, they might just take a list of single game buyers and, just kind of randomly distribute those out. And now it's a far greater science to that. And CRM's a big piece of that, that kind of helps determine, who's going to get a phone call from us. Is it because, they've clicked on our website or from our lead scoring programs, do they score well? Have they done something with their email behavior? So they opened or clicked one of our emails. What did they click on their email? Those types of things factor in as to whether or not, we're going to have one of our trained sales reps.
So you almost have like their electronic DNA to be able to track what will, flick their switch in a way.
I'm sorry?
So you've almost got an electronic DNA of the customer or the fan, so you know what's going to be the thing, the hot button to press that'll get them interested.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, always our goal as CRM managers here is to kind of create this 360 view of the customer. So, for most of the teams that have a CRM, they have a pretty good idea of what their ticketing behavior is because a lot of us use Ticketmaster R6. And that data feeds into our CRM. And for those who maybe aren't familiar with Ticketmaster R6, it's, if you were to go purchase a ticket, at Bobcats.com, and you wanted to go to a game, you'd be using that Ticketmaster system. So we're able to collect, of course, the address, the phone, and the email, and of course, what did you buy? So every team kind of has that, but now it's a little bit more sophisticated of things such as, what kind of emails do you respond to? What kind of surveys have you responded to? And that information, we're collecting it, and that's really what CRM brings to the table. There's so much information that, the fans are willing to give you, who's their favorite player, or, I like to buy nachos in the second quarter, or, I like to buy this jersey around Christmas, all those types of things. But it's hard to collect that data, kind of organize it in some way and actually assimilate something from it. And that's really where CRM really, really helps.
Yeah, we did actually talk about that with the display signage stuff, where the technology's getting there, where you walk into the stadium and you can scan your season ticket and your favourite player might be welcoming you to the arena. And that's the kind of stuff that CRM can offer us, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, I think it's, I kind of like it into three areas. You've got to be able to collect the data, you've got to be able to analyze that data, and then be able to do something from it. And I think really where CRM really, really helps is that collecting piece. because there's just so much out there to collect. How do you organize this in in some organized fashion that somebody else can act on?
It's like a little piece of metal that you need to alchemise into gold. Good on you, Chris. Thanks for giving us an insight, and good luck with the Bobcats season ahead and with the National Democratic Convention within your backyard over the next few days. Must be busy there.
Oh, it's unbelievable, and we're really excited here. Thanks again for having me on.
Chris Seppenfeld there from the Charlotte Bobcats talking to us about how they're doing their best in the customer relations management and how technology is allowing them now to know a lot about you and know what really works for you. So we'll see that start to really become sophisticated in Australia as well.
It definitely will. We'll start seeing a lot more of it as teams want to really maximise that value of the fan.
It's all about the fan. Without us, they got nothing.
Exactly.
Good on you, Sean.
Ben here from Cricket New South Wales. Thanks for tuning in to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks again to Chris for that interview. I look forward to catching up with Chris at Seat 2013 in August in Kansas City this time. So check that out. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/seat to find more information about the Seat conference. That's it for today's show. Thank you very much for joining me. You'll find the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/4. Send me a tweet if you're listening. If you've got any questions from the show, love the feedback. And until next week, I hope your team wins on the weekend and is trending on the internet.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.